everyone, greetings from Chicago and welcome to the Women in Design video series by Chykalophia. On every single video that we have, we spotlight talented and inspired women in design from print to digital illustrator and others in between. My name is Radcat, co-founder and chief creative officer at Chykalophia. We're a digital brand consultancy helping women-led businesses build proper brand foundation from strong communities and lasting relationship through brand strategy, design, and web solution. Now today, I'm actually really excited to be chatting with the amazing woman that you probably already know. I'll be seeing her from the Futur videos and a lot of other amazing design and resources out there. The one and only Melinda Livsey, brand strategist of Marks and Maker. Today, we'll chat with her about gender diversity and mentorship in the design industry. Now we'll discuss what pattern we're seeing around opportunities for you, for the woman in design, plus how mentorship plays a big role in boosting up your creative leadership. Now, I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about Melinda. Melinda Livsey helps designers get paid to think by teaching them how to grow or go from being seen as an order taker to brand expert. She herself went from $0 to now charging $10,000 to think for her clients as their brand strategist. Melinda is currently the lead brand strategist at Radcat Design, as well as design business educator. She's been featured on online education platforms and blogs such as you already know, the Futur, the Logo Creative, and This Design Live, as well as podcasts such as Let's Talk Branding, the Logo Geek, and Passion Behind the Art, just to kind of name a few. So Melinda, you're obviously one of the top women in design influencer out there, and after being featured in so many different resources and communities for the design industry, I feel like a lot of us already know who you are, how you get started, and where you are right now. So I'm just gonna have a few different questions that we're just honestly going to dive into this topic, if that's okay with you. So I'm gonna start with the very first question. How diverse do you feel our design industry today in regards to our women in design who currently being in their senior design roles or even our creative leadership?
Yeah, how diverse? Well, first off, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. That was probably one of the best introductions I've ever had. So thank you for that, Ari. I appreciate that. So how diverse is the creative industry? I don't know as far as women in creative design roles, because I'm not in that world too much as far as like what companies are doing as far as hiring women and how many there are in the industry. I hear that there's not a ton, but I haven't seen it for my own eyes. In that respect, I've mostly seen what's going on in the people who are more influencers, who are out there talking about design, so creative leadership. There is a small handful of women that I do know that are more of the creative leaders in the industry, but for the most part, in my perspective, in the circles that I'm involved in, they are mostly male. So that's just been what I've seen from my own part of the world and the creative world.
Yeah. How do you feel about that though? Seeing that there's mainly taken over, if I could say that word, like taken over by the men's, and we don't see a ton of women in the creative leadership in our own industry. How do you feel about that?
Well, as a woman myself, I actually see it as a huge opportunity. And I see that, I don't see it as a problem necessarily. It's only a problem if you make it a problem. And also I understand that different people have had different experiences in this too. I've never had an issue with that. I've actually seen it I've actually seen more doors open for me because of it, and because it's more male dominated. So anytime that I'm asked on a podcast or an interview, people are very excited that they can get more women on, because I've been told that they've asked, like from a male perspective, I've been told multiple times that the males have asked women to be on podcasts, be on webinars, and they get told no. Yeah. A lot of them get told no. And so I see it as just huge opportunity versus an issue.
Honestly, I completely agree with you. I feel like it's only going to be a problem if you make it a problem. But instead of thinking about it as a problem, why not, just like what you already mentioned, use it as an opportunity, right? Use it as an opportunity for you not to just create opportunity for yourself so that you can promote yourself and your career, but also use it as an example for others so that they can follow what you're doing, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So it is going to be an interesting question for you as well. With that said, do you feel that you would also want to like mentor other women in design to just kind of like take the first step to take this opportunity, or where are you around that particular area? Do you mentor at all?
That's a really good question. I think the areas in which I mentor are more in group settings. Like I do have a mastermind that I run, and it's a mix of male and female. I do have other things that I teach where it is more community based,
Okay.
and so I do coaching as well. But it's not. I don't limit it to women specific because I believe in doing what you can to integrate and not separate ourselves out, because I think the more we separate ourselves out, the more we're playing into this whole like gender battle. And so I look at it as I want to lead by example. So what do I believe? I believe we should, if we see an opportunity, when we want to integrate, we want to get involved, then I need to do that. I need to be the example. And so I do mentorship, but it's in different ways. It's in the mastermind, it's in private coaching, but not limited to just women.
That's super cool. And honestly, you have been one of my inspiration as well. So
Thank
always
you.
looking up to what you're currently doing. And I see that you're definitely like leading by example as well. So I'm hoping that others as well will take that onto themselves and challenge themselves to take this as an opportunity for them to join in this, honestly, a diverse community, right? I mean, if we're really looking at how diverse it is, it's only going to be diverse as we want it to be. So definitely like take that challenge for yourself, everyone. Now, the second thing that I also wanted to talk about is really kind of look at your role and experience as part of the Futur team, which I think you currently still are, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of men, obviously, in that group. And has there ever been a moment for you where you feel like you encounter a problem, or maybe there was like some challenges due to your gender? And if there are, how did you actually deal with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I have one actual story to bring up that I thought was a gender issue and it ended up not being one. So that was really interesting for me too. So I was on a show with Chris and two other males, and they're all older than me, like probably 15 to 20 years older than me. And so I'm sitting there and it was a live stream, having a great discussion. And I was mostly quiet for most of the time until about 45 minutes in, until someone commented, like, what, is Melinda just going to sit there? Is she going to say anything? And that's when I was brought into the conversation. And so I realized later, like, I didn't really have anything to say at the beginning, but it wasn't obvious until someone called it out. And I thought, well, should I have been brought into the conversation, or why didn't I say anything before? Did I feel weird because it was all male? And so later I had a chat with Chris, and I asked him about it. I said, is there a way that I could participate in the conversation earlier? Like, what should I do? Should I just come in and say something when I have something to say? Or I just felt an unease. And he said, well, did you have anything to say? And I was like, no, not really. And he goes, then don't say it. And it wasn't an issue about male, female, or anything. He's just like, if you have something to say, you're more than welcome to say it. If you don't have anything to say, don't say it. And it relieved me of so much pressure that I felt like, we have to invite people into conversations, and we have all this like assumptions that I had about how things should go. And he's just like, if you have something to say, you say it. And he's like, sometimes I don't say anything. And not in his case, but if he's in a group setting and someone else is leading, he's like, if I didn't have anything to say, I just don't say it. So that gave me a lot of freedom. And it also told me that sometimes I view things through the gender lens, and it had nothing to do with that at all. It had to do with my own comfort in the situation and how comfortable I felt in sharing. So that was an
that's a
interesting
really good
situation.
example.
Yeah.
question around like comfortableness, right? I feel like for a lot of women, we like being in our comfort bubbles, and I feel like we rarely challenge ourselves. And I think this is like a really good example where a lot of women just want to listen. They just want to observe. And they don't really feel as compelled to either argue or maybe like voicing out their opinions as much as mainly most women, not most men do. Is how do you think we can change this? I mean, like, do we need to like inspire others to take on more leadership in terms of like voice out your opinions and thoughts, or do you feel like it's just a matter of like people's character? What do you think for that particular topic, Melinda?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I don't see a problem of people just sitting there and observing and listening. If that's truly where they feel most comfortable, I think where it's an issue is if someone has a stirring in them that they really do want to share, then I would say, well, then go and find a way that you can. And so I wouldn't want to force anyone or say they should speak up if they really don't have anything to say. Then that's okay. If they are more comfortable with sitting back, observing and listening, then I say just let people be who they are. And like you said, the character will rise to the top. Like who you are will rise up. And if that just means that you want to stay in the background, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But I would say though, if you have something to say, just like what Chris told me, if you have something to say, you say it. And so that's where I would hope that we can encourage those who do have a stirring in them and have a desire to speak and to be heard and to learn and whatever it is, if they want to participate, I say, if you want to do something, then you go out and find a way how to do it.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to gear us back towards mentorship a little bit. So mentorship around your career, how does it look like? I mean, have you been in like some sort of like mentorship program? Like, is there like particular experience that kind of impact your career and your professional development? I mean, if there were, who were your mentors, or you have a mentor particularly that you meet one-on-one? How does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, throughout my career in education, all my mentors have been unofficial, very organic. It just happened. I was never, that I can think of, I was never really a part of an official mentorship program.
Okay.
I always shied away from organized anything because I just felt it was too contrived, or the people I get set up with, I'm like, I don't have anything in common with you. And I just never had really great experiences with things like that. And so I would gravitate towards certain professors where I would consider some of them my mentors at that time when I was in college. And then and recently, as you had mentioned too, I'm on the Futur. And so Christo has been my mentor and coach for the past 3 years. And that was an organic thing that happened in me getting on his show. And it was all because I engaged with his content on Facebook. And he saw that I was hungry to learn and that I was willing to do things and I was open-minded. And I was willing to do what he told me because I'm like, this is the problem I have. And he told me, you need to do these things. And I would do them. And he's like, oh, well, you're actually going to put in the action and you're open to learning and to change. And so that was an organic mentorship that happened. I do have a couple other people too that I look up to in the industry and who have guided me. And again, it's all been organic. It's just been them sharing where they're at, and then they see what I'm doing and they pour into my life and ask me good questions. I think that's another thing where if you have someone farther along than you, they typically will define themselves as like a farther along learner, or they're just like, I'm learning this too. I just might have learned a little bit more than you. And those are the types of mentors that you want, that aren't the people that just think they're experts and know everything. And they're able to ask you really good questions to get out what you need to do, because they don't know what you need to do. We all know it's in us, like what our next step should be and what truly fits our situation. And the right mentors will ask you really good questions to get that out of you. And sometimes it just happens in random conversations and people I've known for years. But yeah, for me, it's just been organic.
That's really cool. Now, for others who are currently watching this particular episode, where would you suggest them, I guess, like getting started in terms of like finding their mentor? What ways can they leverage in this obviously amazing digital world, and how can they get started to find their mentor?
Yeah, I would say anyone, like who do you admire? Who do you follow? Who do you consume all of the information that they put out? I think if someone's putting out a lot of educational information or their thought pieces or anything like that, they most likely have a teaching bone in their body somewhere, and they want to teach people, they want to guide people. So I would say go find those people, and they're pretty easy to find out online right now. So go find someone you really admire and eat up everything that they're putting out and engage with their content and learn from them and get involved. If they have groups, get involved with them. So there's a ton out there. And I would say start there, and then you can get to know what types of teaching you like, what types of information you like, what communities you're drawn towards. And then typically if you're starting to get involved with that mentor or coach's things, you're going to end up, they probably have a group of some sort, like a mastermind or pro group like we're involved in. And then you're going to get closer and closer to that leader. So I would just follow whatever they're putting out, whatever they put out there for you to follow, then follow, engage, participate.
I feel like that kind of leans into the future itself, right? Because I know you and I in the same group too. So accidentally promoting that. But hey, it is obviously the best resources in my opinion, not just because we're in a group, but has been quite a big resources that I basically use for my own professional development and for my own business. I just honestly admire what Chris has been doing for everyone in the creative industry and being the disruptor that he is and sharing all the knowledge that he has for everyone so that we can learn from him. So we're going to close it at that for the future. Next thing that I also wanted to chat about is still around the creative leadership that we as a woman need to kind of step up our game a little bit. So looking at the current state of women leadership in the creative industry, from what I've seen, there are amazing women in senior role position and also like influencer in the design industry as well as in our own like career and stuff like that. There's a lot of them, but I'm trying to figure out what will be like the best way for us to also kind of cultivate more women leaders in the industry. What do you think really hold them back? Is there a way that maybe we can kind of support them in a sense so that they can get the comfortableness or like the confidence that they need to step up?
Yeah, I wonder, I don't know if I have an answer for this. The things I can speculate are, one, I would want to have more discussions with them about where are you stuck? If that is something you want to do, you want to step into more of a leadership role, what is holding you back? I would want to have actual conversations with people who feel that way to hear what that is. But I would also say, and going back to what we've said before earlier in our conversation, that I try to lead by example. And so the best thing that I know how to do besides talking to them and having discussions, because I don't always, or I'm not always able to or have the time to, is to just be the example. And so how would I hope other women would be? Then I want to show that. I want to demonstrate that the best I can. So then other women could see me and go, oh, well, if Melinda did it, that means I can do it. It is actually possible. So I want to give them a blueprint or at least something to look at and get inspired by and say, oh, well, if she can do it, then that means I can do it too. And so that's how I'm going about it right now. Yeah. But as far as the specifics about what's holding them back, I'm not exactly sure.
It's for all of us to figure out, right? So like dive into yourself and see some of the strong character that you have or something that you can leverage that makes you unique, and maybe like kind of lean in with your strength and go from there.
Yeah. And I do want to add really quick too, is I'm trying to think back to when I was in my journey of getting more out there online and talking more and being more vulnerable out in front of people, that I was very concerned with being perceived a certain way and not being perceived how I wanted people to perceive me. And there was something that Chris had said to me before I got on his show. And he said, all I'm asking for you is just for you to be 100% honest. That's all. And he said, all these things are just timestamps and of your life. And when you look back, you're going to see how much you grew. And that gave me so much freedom to realize, oh, anything I put out there, it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to show up acting like I have it all together. I can actually show up and just be me, and that's enough. And I don't know, and I don't know if that's what is going through other women's minds, but I have a hunch that it might be, of the whole perfectionist, or we want to be perceived a certain way. And I think maybe everyone can relate to that in a certain way. But when that got lifted off from me, that gave me so much freedom, because I'm like, oh, I can be honest. Oh, I got no problem doing that. And when that was the goal, then everything else just fell away. All of that pressure that I had for myself fell away. And there were times where I felt scared and I felt vulnerable and I felt embarrassed. And then I looked back and I'm like, yeah, but look how much I've grown. And that's what fuels me now.
That's amazing. You do you, basically, right? Because honestly, you are the only one who knows exactly what you're capable of and how much you can challenge yourself. So let's honestly try that and see where it's going to take you. And honestly, for you, Melissa, to be sharing that their own insights around that, you actually admit that sometimes you feel scared, you feel vulnerable, sometimes you are, sometimes you honestly feel afraid that others can judge you and all that kind of thing. I feel like that always get through my brain as well. And I'm afraid that people just gonna think something else of me and put me in some sort of like labels and stuff like that. But I think if you have a very specific message that you want to share and you believe that's going to help other people, just do it, right? Haters gonna hate. There's no questions on that one, but just believe that you'll be attracting the same people who are going to admire what you do. So just align yourself with those type of people. Next, I want to talk a little bit about you as the brand strategist. I know you also help like other brand designers to get paid to think, and you also teach them. You mentioned you have your own like community and bootcamp like right now currently happening, right? So tell me, like, how did you foster that creative leadership?
Oh, how did I foster that? Well, it did all start with me being on the Futur, and it was interesting because that wasn't even the intent at the beginning at all. It was, I was on the Futur so that Chris could coach me and show it live to people of what he was teaching me and how I was transitioning from, and I didn't even know that was going to be the end point for me to become a strategist when I first met him, but it just was the natural progression of things. And so it started there, and it was interesting because people started following me to find out how I was doing what I was doing and how I was implementing everything I was learning from Chris. And so they thought, they saw me as someone they could relate to and think, oh, well, those are the questions I've had. That's what I wondered. And so they were following me because they wanted to see that transition happen and learn from how I'm learning. And so I started getting a following because of that. And so that's where the creative leadership began for me. And it just snowballed into me. I used to have a weekly email, which I still write an email, just not weekly. A weekly email for, I think it was a year and a half about, that I did every single week. And I was showing the behind the scenes of my business and how I was implementing what I learned into my business. So from there, people were following me with that. And then that turned into a mastermind group. So I offered a mastermind group to people who were following me in my email list and built that up. So I've been doing that for almost, it's going to be 2 years in August. Wow. That I've had that going. Yeah. And a solid group of people, and they're absolutely amazing. I call them my inner circle because they really are. They are my inner circle. So I've done that. So everything just built on each other. So as I made that transition and people were following that transition, then it just made sense for the next step to be me forming communities and then teaching them what I did. And it just was the natural next step. So I just went with it. because that's what made sense.
That's honestly amazing. And I can kind of see how it turned out very organically for you, because you were being vulnerable and you just wanted to share like, hey, here's how I implement all of these like nuggets and insights that I got, and see how I translate into the business. I feel like people always wanted to see the behind the scenes. And I think that attracts a lot of people, just kind of be relatable to you, and just really trying to understand like how you are doing it, and then what can they also like take away for themselves so that they can apply for their own business or their own career. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Okay, honestly, I don't have any other questions, but I feel like this diversity and creative leadership issue in women in design, I feel like it's such a bigger topic right now. I feel a lot of people are either like blaming something or like thinking it as a problem, where I feel like, in fact, I honestly agree with what Melinda has said. It is a big opportunity for a lot of us women in design to just step up and claim your spot, your fair share in the table, if you really feel that is what the issue that you have around how diversity currently looks for the creative leadership for design industry. Now, honestly, I feel like this conversation can go on and on and on, but I'd like to just gonna close it around here, because I know we're getting very close to our end. So I would like to thank Melinda Livsey for sharing all of her insights with us today. If there's anything that you have going on in terms of like questions, or still have anything for Melinda Livsey to answer, feel free to reach out to her directly. But aside of that, this is it. This is it for our interview today. Please subscribe to our channel to watch more Women in Design Spotlight videos. Also, make sure to connect with both myself and Melinda online, and I will make sure to include everything about the links for Melinda and any other stuff for her bootcamp as well in the description. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Melinda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.